Okay, let's dig in. Lightroom. Well, the main thing about Lightroom that we need to understand is the catalogue and how it works, because it does work differently to if you're used to Photoshop. Now here we've got a computer and we've got Lightroom installed on it. And what Lightroom does when it first installs is it creates a folder. And this is the catalogue folder. This is where all the catalogue items go. And it's just a folder. That's as simple as it gets. And if you look at the top of my Lightroom, I've got Ken's Image Library. This is the catalogue that I've made. You can make as many catalogues as you like, by the way. But this one is the one that I've made. It's my personal one. And it just tells you, oh, it'll be Photoshop Lightroom Classic, and it's the library. Now, it's normally placed, this catalogue folder, in your pictures folder. And if we go and open up my pictures folder, which is here, we can see that there is a folder called Ken's Image Library. Now, this is that. They are the same thing. This is the folder that Lightroom has made when I've created my catalogue. Now, if we go into this folder, we'll find there are two main items in here. One of them is called Ken's Image Library.lrcat, and this is the library catalogue file. And this one is a folder, and it's Ken's Image Library Previews, which is LR data. Now, in this file, the library, the LRcat file, everything you do in Lightroom goes in here. So if you move a slider, click a button, do anything as an edit, it automatically goes into this catalogue file here. Now, the images that we see that when we look in Lightroom are the previews, and these are created again as Lightroom is installed, and as Lightroom actually opens up every time, it renews what's in this folder, all the previews for your images. So these are the two important things that come as part of the catalogue folder. Now let's just run through that a little bit further in a little bit more detail. So here we've got the catalogue folder again. Now any edits we do go into this folder, go into the catalogue. Any metadata from your camera or anywhere else goes into the catalogue. Any keywords, they all go into Ken's Image Library.lrcat. They are all stored in this catalogue file. All your preview images, they are stored in Ken's Image Library Previews. This is the LR data file. Now, where are your images? Well, your images, I suppose historically, are on your hard drive. But Lightroom enables us to change that if we want to. Now let's just have a quick look at an example and say, okay, let's imagine that we are opening up and we want to sell soaps. So what's the first thing we do? Well, we're going to make a catalogue. And in this printed catalogue, we're going to have pictures of all the soaps we do, little descriptions, and then how much each one costs. The actual soaps, they live in a factory. They're stored on the shelves in the factory. All the different colours, all the different smells. They don't live in the catalogue. Now what we need to make this work is a connection between the catalogue and the actual items themselves. So we need that connection. Now that can be a web connection where you would order over the web. It can be a telephone where you ring in and say, send me one of them blue ones, I think it smells lovely. But so long as there is that connection, then it doesn't really matter where these pieces of soap are, these bars of soap live. So if somebody decided to move this factory, so long as this link was kept on, then it wouldn't matter, nothing would change. Right, so we've got this catalogue, and a more important thing that we need to look at is the location of your images. Now, as soon as you put an image on the computer, Lightroom has a chat with the operating system, be that Windows or be that the Mac, and says, "Oi, you've got to give me a place to live." And so the operating system says, "Yeah, okay, well, you live at 54 Acacia Avenue on this hard drive." And the image says, "That's fantastic, I know where I live now." So if we've got location of the images, we've obviously got all the preview images, which are in the catalogue folder. Any adjustments that we make, they also go into the catalogue folder, into the LRCat file. Any metadata, like we've said, and then the location of all the images. Now normally that would probably be on your C drive on the computer, but really Lightroom gives us the option to tip that on its head, because here we've got a lot of these images are saved and they're filling up our hard drive space, and so that's making the computer work harder, and it's going to reduce the life of your computer. But with Lightroom, so long as Lightroom knows the location, we can change the location. And we can put all the images, these are the RAW files, the DNG files, or your JPEG files, on an external drive. And so long as there is this connection is maintained, then Lightroom will work quite happily. And your computer obviously is going to get a little bit of respite, because there's not going to be as much of this heavy data that's sitting on the hard drive doing absolutely nothing. Because for the majority of the time, Lightroom doesn't need these images. All it needs to do is, when it needs it, it needs to know where it is, so it can go and get it and do something with it. Now the important thing to realise is that the image that we see when we look at Lightroom is this one. It's one of the previews. We are not seeing the original image. These are stored on an external drive, a pen drive, wherever you want to store them. But what we actually see, we're looking at the preview images that are made for us. Now there were some changes. I just thought I'd put this in just in case, because I do have students that fall into this trap. There was a rebranding. The Lightroom used to be called Photoshop Lightroom CC. That was the desktop version. But Adobe decided they needed to capture the tablet and the phone market. So they brought out a new piece of software. But they gave that the old name. They called that Photoshop Lightroom CC. So then they had to rebrand the desktop version, which is the one we're using, and they now call that Photoshop Lightroom Classic CC. Now if you've paid for the photography package with Adobe, then you can have both or just one. But sometimes if you're not watching out, then you could download the wrong one, and this has happened quite a lot. Okay, that's just an FYI for you. Okay, Lightroom. What is it? Good question. And where does it fit? An even better question. Okay, what is it? Well, it's a really phenomenal image processor. And if you're used to using Photoshop, you'll probably be aware of Camera Raw. Well, Lightroom is built on the Camera Raw engine. So it has everything that Adobe Camera Raw has. But because of the way it works, it gives us access to a pretty phenomenal search and retrieve database. Now, where does it fit? Well, historically we've had Photoshop and we've had Bridge. And if you don't use Lightroom, then really you should be using Bridge anyway. And then Lightroom appears in the middle. And people say, well, what is this going to be the end of Photoshop? Are we just going to overwrite Photoshop, or is it going to get rid of Bridge? Well, in fact, it's getting rid of Bridge. If you use Lightroom and you adopt Lightroom as your primary processor, then you will not use Bridge. And Lightroom gives us access to what's called a workflow. Now let's have a look at that. I remember not that long ago, really, that there was a time when this kind of thing happened in the editing industry. Let's imagine we've got a task to clean a car. So we might need a sponge, and we might need a chamois leather, and a bit of water, and a bucket probably, and probably some shampoo. Now, all these have different skill sets. You might be really good with the chamois leather, but can you get the top off this car shampoo? Well, I can't, and not with my hands. Can you carry these buckets of water around? Well, you need strong arms for that. Can you turn this tap on? Ooh. So they've all got different skill sets, and this is part of where Lightroom was born, because each of these, it used to be like that in the editing industry. You'd have a piece of software for putting your keywords in, you'd have a different piece of software for putting your metadata in, you have a different piece of software for editing, and they all look different. Nobody spoke to each other in them days, and it was a bit of a nightmare. So Lightroom was built a little bit on workflow, and if you think about a car wash, basically you have an input, you drive your car in, you put your money in the slot, and you sit and wait. And then everything happens in the car wash, and then you get an output, which is a clean car. So everything is kept inside the car wash, and that's part of the theory of how Lightroom works. Now, it's based on a modular system, so as we said earlier, it's a really robust image editor, and it's a good database as well. But we've also got modules where all like functions have been brought together. So here we've got the library module, where everything's done, such as all your cataloguing functions, your importing, your exporting, your keywords, your metadata, all that good stuff is done in the library module. Once we've finished with that, and we say, okay, well, we've got all those keywords in and everything, so we'll go and develop the images. We'll make the images a little bit better. And then there's some outputs. There's a map module. And because of a collaboration with Google Maps, you can actually put your images on a world map right down to street level where you actually stood taking the picture. Next, we've got the book module. And the book module is good for such as wedding photographers, because inevitably the bride and groom will want some kind of record of the occasion, and you can supply them a book. They may want a slideshow. So there's a slideshow module where you can put together slideshows with effects in the middle and time it all, and then you could save it out as a movie file to be able to put on a website. Then we've got a print module where we've got lots of pre-configured templates that you can tailor to your own device. And then we've got the web module, and the web module allows you to make little mini websites and then upload them, if you've got some server space, up onto the internet, and so you'll be live with a little website of images. Now, classical workflow, as I see it, is linear in nature. So what we used to do before Lightroom was you'd have Bridge, where you do your previewing and your cataloguing. And then Bridge would pass off an image into Photoshop for you. If it was a RAW file, it would open up Adobe Camera Raw. You could do your edits in there, and then Adobe Camera Raw would pass the file onto Photoshop. And then you could do your editing in Photoshop, output it, and save it. But that's it, it's linear. It goes from here to here and then stops. So if you want a slightly different image, then you could go back to your original, make another image, and then save that. So you're basically duplicating quite a lot of data. Okay, now Lightroom has basically everything that Bridge has, and it's built on Adobe Camera Raw. And an advantage it gives us is that it gives us quite a robust database, a search and retrieval. Now Lightroom has more of a circular workflow. So Lightroom itself is basically covers probably 95% of what you want to do with your images. Previewing, cataloguing, adjustments, slideshows, printing, yada 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 yada. It goes off the bottom of the screen. Anything that Lightroom doesn't do, then Lightroom can pass off to Photoshop. So you don't open Photoshop, Lightroom opens Photoshop, and now we're treating Photoshop as a plugin. And then Photoshop, you can put your layers on, your type, your masking, your smart objects, all the things that Photoshop has strength for. And then when you've finished, Photoshop passes the file back to Lightroom. So you've got a circular workflow, and it parks it in what's called a version set right next door to the original file. So it's really, really difficult to actually lose anything in Lightroom. Okay, the catalogue. Well, the bridge, when we use bridge, it sees all the files in a folder. Now Lightroom, it only sees files that are in the catalogue, and it does give us the advantage of this really, really cool database. Now let's just have a look at that from the point of view of a library, say, as an example. Well, let's say there's been an accident, there's been a fire, and all the library cards have been destroyed. So how on earth can we run a library? Well, what we do is we nip down to B&Q and we get ourselves a little set of drawers, and then we get some library cards, and we'd then pick the first book off the shelf and we'd start writing some stuff about it. So we put the name of the author and what the book's called, probably the ISBN number, the location. Important, where is this book? What shelf is it on? And then what we'll do is we'll stick a copy of the front cover in the library card as well. And so now we've got a complete catalogue entry. And this then goes in one of the drawers. The book doesn't live in the drawer. The book goes back on the shelf. Okay, so let's have a look at that parallel with our images. Here we've got an image that we, by hook or by crook, we've got this on the computer. And the computer operating system has given it an address. Now Lightroom opens up and says, sorry mate, I can't see any images because none of them have been catalogued. So what we say to Lightroom very nicely is, well, could you catalogue this image for me please? Yeah, sure I can. So Lightroom has a chat with the image and it says, have you got a file name? Well, yeah. Have you got any caption? Yeah, I've got a caption. Have you got any keywords? Yeah, I've got plenty of them. Well, I'll have them off you. Metadata? Yeah, I'll have that as well. Location, where do you live? Oh, I've been given a flat at 54 Acacia Avenue. So it says, brilliant, I know where you are now if I need to contact you. And then we need a thumbnail. So as it's importing, Lightroom takes a photograph of your photograph. And then that's complete. That's a complete catalogue entry for this image. So we've got our image, hook or by crook. We get it on the computer. Lightroom comes along. No, can't see it, sorry. So what we do, we get it to create a catalogue. And we put the metadata, the camera info, the location and the thumbnail all in this catalogue entry. And then Lightroom will see the file. And the image that you see is the thumbnail that's been created, not the original image. That's up here on the computer. And the final thing that happens is that Lightroom has got a good deal from B&Q on Magic String. So what it does, it ties one end to the thumbnail and one end to your image. And so now these two, they can't be separated. And this gives us an advantage because so long as this string is intact, this image can be anywhere. So what's to stop us swinging them over and putting them on an external storage device? Nothing at all. So long as this string is maintained, we can move them, and now the catalogue stays on the computer, but all your images are on this external storage device. Now that's good news for your computer. So here we are, we're in Lightroom, we say, well, let's make this image black and white. We click on that, and what it does, Lightroom puts an entry in the catalogue called make this image black and white. And it does. It converts the thumbnail to black and white. Doesn't do anything to this image up here or on the external drive. It just converts the thumbnail to black and white. Now another advantage to this is that you can have more than one catalogue entry. So basically, if we wanted a black and white version of this image and a sepia version of this image, we can have it, because all we do is we just give it two different catalogue entries. And these catalogue entries take bytes rather than gigabytes. So it's very good because we can have one image but several versions of it which Lightroom treats as separate images. And this is pretty cool. Now where does it go wrong? Well, it goes wrong when you delete or you rename an image not from within Lightroom. So if you go onto your normal operating system when you've not got Lightroom open and you say, oh, well, I'll just delete this image from here and I'll rename this one. Well, when you then come to Lightroom and open it up, what Lightroom does is it goes in, checks all the stuff in the catalogue, runs up to the end of the piece of string expecting to find an image, but it doesn't find the image that it wants. And so it gets a bit narky with you and starts putting little signs up saying, oi, what you been doing behind my back while I've been asleep? So this is an important thing, that if this string gets cut, then you've got problems. But if you understand the string, then it doesn't take much to put the thing right. This is non-destructive editing. Lightroom catalogue, all your metadata, black and white in the catalogue. It converts your thumbnail to black and white, and that is a catalogue entry. It's a text file, and you can see that this is a dump from one of my cameras, and it's just all text. It's like a Word file. So that's why they don't take a lot of your memory up, these catalogue entries. And how do we make a catalogue entry? Well, we click the import button, or we can use the menu of import photos and video. Now it's important to realise that, if you like, Lightroom isn't a Hoover. It doesn't hoover up all your images. The catalogue and everything is on your computer, and Lightroom has access through this piece of string to where your images are. But Lightroom doesn't own them. And I know import does suggest a bit of a journey, but I have actually had students that have imported images into Lightroom and then gone straight onto the desktop of the computer and deleted them because, well, I don't need them twice. Well, that's not how it works. Lightroom doesn't own your images. All it has is a piece of string connected to them. Now, Lightroom can have multiple catalogues, so you can create new catalogues, but Lightroom can only search one catalogue, and this can be a little bit of a bummer. But if you're, let's say a wedding photographer, then you may want a separate catalogue for each wedding that you do. Nothing wrong with that. But then if you decided that you wanted to pick, let's say, the brides out of every wedding that you've ever done, you couldn't do it because Lightroom can only search in one catalogue. So the methodology of choice, generally speaking, is to have one catalogue, and in that catalogue subdivide everything by all the other assets that you've got, such as your keywords, metadata and collections. Now basically Lightroom comes down to three core skills. The first one of these is GERRIT in. Now if you're not from Barnsley, you'll probably know that as importing. And this is actually getting images from your camera and into Lightroom so it can process them. Next, we need to FETTLE it. And again, if you're not from Barnsley, I'll explain this. This is developing. This is your develop module. This is making your images better or repairing them. And then when you've done all that, everything just exists in Lightroom. So if you want to get an image and share it with somebody for social media or whatever, then we need to get it out. Or if you're not from Barnsley, that's exporting. Okay, so we're just going to do a little bit about getting it in or importing, just to give you an example. Now, importing, we get the import dialog, and this import dialog has actually 3 sides, just like Lightroom. We've got a left hand, which is the source, and this is where all the things that are connected to your computer will appear. Along the top here, we've got 4 things that you can actually do, and one of them is add to the catalogue, one of them is move, one of them is copy, and one of them is copy as DNG. And then here we've got, well, what do you want to add to the file and where do you want to put it? Now, adding to catalogue, this is probably what you'll do most, and this is where your images are actually still on the computer. So by hook or by crook, you've got the images from your camera onto the computer. So Lightroom doesn't have to move them anywhere or do anything with them. All it needs to do is create the catalogue entry for it. And this is called adding to the catalogue, because that's all it's doing. It knows where the file is. All it's doing is creating the catalogue. And then it's putting this magic piece of string between the thumbnail and the image itself. Now, copy. Copy is the one I would use if we had images on a memory card. Because move is a little bit, it actually sends a pixel and then it deletes the pixel off your memory card. So you're moving it. So technically, you could get the problem where if say the power goes off or there's any corruption, you could lose access to some of your files. So I wouldn't use move for this. I would use copy. And what Lightroom does here, the image is here on your memory card. It first creates a copy on your computer, so we're now safe. It then creates a catalogue entry for it and creates the thumbnail. And then it fixes the magic string on. And that's copy. Now, if you run a DNG workflow, then it's a 3-step process. Here we've got the image on the memory card. And first we're going to create a copy. And then we're going to convert to DNG. And then we're going to create a catalogue entry for it. There we go. Done and dusted. And that is copy as DNG. If you were just wanting to maintain your raw file status, then you would just use copy. And that would respect the fact that whatever raw files you're using, it would just import them as raw files. Oh, and then it puts the piece of string on. You nearly forgot that, didn't you? Okay, so let's do it. Let's do a little bit of this. We're going to make a new catalogue. And then we're going to import some images. Okay, I'll see you in Lightroom. Okay, here we are in Lightroom. Now, at the moment, we're in my personal catalogue. And this has got all my personal images in. Now, let's say for this training catalogue that I want to make, I don't want to mix up the images from my training with my personal images. So I'm going to create a new catalogue. So I'm going to go up to the File menu and I'm going to go to New Catalogue. And here I'll just place it on my desktop and I'm going to create a new catalogue called, let's say training. See if I can spell properly. Training catalogue. And then I'm going to click create. And what it's going to do now is close down my version of Lightroom. I could back it up at this point because it's reminding me, but at the moment I'll just say no, I'm going to skip it this time. And now what will happen is Lightroom will now open up in a brand new but empty catalogue. So here we are, we've no folders. This is a brand new, clean, empty catalogue. And let's just minimize that. And if you look on the desktop now, oops, let's just minimize that. And if you look on my desktop here, I've now got a folder called Training Catalogue. And this is my catalogue folder. So if I double click on that to open it up, you'll see that I've got the files that we talked about earlier. I've got my training catalogue, and this is the LRCat file. There's a couple of files here that you just ignore, and the helper one, you ignore that as well. Don't ever delete them or mess with them. And then we've got the training catalogue previews folder. So both of these things are the things we talked about early on in the presentation. Just going to close that down, and I'll go back to Lightroom again. Right, now we need to import some images. Well, I've actually got some images on the desktop, which are my training images, but at the moment Lightroom can't see them because we've got an empty catalogue and they've not been imported. So what I'm going to do is, well, you can go to the file menu, but I prefer just go down to the big button and click import. And then on this left hand side, it shows me everything when I navigate to what's on my desktop. And you can see here that I've got a folder here that's called Lightroom Workshops Master. And if I drop that down, you can see that it's got subfolders with images in. And if I click on that, you'll see that now it shows me all the files that are in all these folders, because it shows me what's in the Lightroom Workshops Master folder and all the subfolders. And I want to import, that's the one I want to import, so I've clicked on it to highlight it. Now it's already figured out that they're already on my computer, so all I need to do is add them to the catalogue. You can do it another way if you wanted, but basically it's pretty foolproof. Lightroom's pretty good at recognising that. And then on the right hand side we've got, well, what do you want to do with these images and where do you want to put them? Well, we don't need to put them anywhere because we're just adding them to the catalogue. We already know where they are, they're on the computer. We can then add develop settings if we want to. We can add metadata. So I have a metadata template which puts all my personal information in, and that gets added to every image as it imports. And then you can put keywords in. So I'll put a generic keyword in of training. Oh, that's not good. Of training. So now that keyword and that metadata we embedded in every image as it imports it. Now the images on here, if you've got one that you think, no, I don't really need that one, that's not a good one, or that's a duplicate, then I can untick it and now Lightroom will not import that image. In this case I want to import them all, so I'm going to click the tick again, and then I just go down and I click import. And Lightroom is now chugging away merrily and it's creating thumbnails. You can see these as they come up. This is Lightroom creating all the thumbnails and attaching that piece of magic string to each of the image files that's on your computer or on your external drive. And now you're ready to start work. Once it's finished rendering everything out, You see it's fetching and the initial previews. You've got a progress bar, and this will keep chugging along until it gets to the end, and then all the previews will have been made and you'll be ready you'll be cooking with gas. And then it's just a case of choosing the images, going into whatever module you want, and then moving forward. Let's say this may take a little while depending on what size previews that you're having done, but it will quicken up towards the end. Nearly done. Good on it. We're finished. Everything's imported and we're ready to go. And now when we see here now that we're in Lightroom, we can actually see all these images. And if we click on this, we can now click on each individual folder. So in the Lightroom Workshop folder and all its subfolders, there are 249 images. So when you click on a folder, it shows you the images that are in that folder and in any subfolder. So here I've got 24 images called in the rename images folder, 23 in the renaming images folder, renaming folders, move folders, collections. So you've now imported all these images and you're ready to go. Well, that's it for this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up or leave me a comment under the video. And please, if you get a minute, click the subscribe button and help me build my band of happy followers. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.